I, 26F, found out that my husband, 27M, has been keeping a secret box of mementos on the top shelf of our closet, and I don't know what to do about it, or if I should even bring it up. I honestly don't know how the hell I'm supposed to talk about this. I genuinely am in disbelief. So backstory: my husband, let's call him Lee, and I have been together since our sophomore year in high school. We were each other's first everythings, and for the most part feel like we honestly have a picturesque marriage. I'm currently 5 months pregnant with our first child, and have taken it upon myself to DIY the guest bedroom into a nursery. But to do that I wanted to sort through the stuff in there, and get rid of anything unnecessary. I think it's relevant to say that I'm pretty short, 5 feet 2 inches, so I don't really store things up high since I can't reach, but my husband's a foot taller than me, so he doesn't have this tendency. Which is how I found the memento box on the top shelf. It was just a plain cardboard box, so I didn't think much of it at first, but since I didn't remember putting it up there, I wanted to see if it was something that needed to go into storage or if it was just junk. I don't know what I was expecting, but inside the box there was a photo album, a trash bag, and a black leather bag. The album just had my name plus Lee's written on the cover, so I thought it'd be something sweet because Lee has a tendency to gift me sentimental things, but no. The album was full of nude pictures of myself, all of them marked with dates and a short journal-like entry. The first one was from our first time from when we were teens, and the latest one was marked from the night I surprised him with my pregnancy announcement. Most of the pictures are poor quality, but some are clearly of me sleeping after the deed. These journal entries talk about how he ranks each experience, and his favorite part of it like some weird log book. Inside the bags were some of my lingerie and even some old razors and hairbrushes. I don't know why on earth he keeps them, but he has 2 bags full. I don't know how or what to do. I mean, is this normal behavior? Is this some twisted form of romance on his part? A part of me feels like I shouldn't feel as disgusted as I am, but this violates my own boundaries since I explicitly told him in the past that I was against sending or giving him any nude photos. What do? I love my husband, but I'm not sure how to confront him about this. Top comments commenter: no, this is not normal. At all. This is also not romantic. At all. The fact that he took pictures of you sleeping and has them in an album is incredibly concerning. Him ranking times y'all had cuddles is setting off more red flags. This is creepy and inappropriate behavior. I can't imagine my fiancé taking pictures of me sleeping, let alone him keeping a log of our cuddle life. Girl, you have to show him the box and demand answers, and don't go easy on him. None of this is okay or normal, and you should really be concerned as to why he thinks any of that is okay. Commenter: taking creepy pictures of you as you sleep naked, and having naked photos of you as a minor in general, and then rating every cuddle experience with you is not normal at all. The lingerie too, and the razors and hairbrushes make it even creepier. This is creepy obsessed stalker shit. Update 1. So I'm not sure if anyone cares, and while I didn't reply to any of the comments, I did end up talking with my husband about this just a few days ago. I'm not going to lie, I wanted to just act like I didn't see anything and go on with my happy life. But after giving birth to my baby girl about a month and a half ago, I guess the stress and everything added up and I let it slip in an argument. I don't remember all that was said, but I was exhausted, and my husband, while he's been super helpful and took over the household chores for me and helps out with baby girl, had just been getting on my nerves. I sort of exploded on him in a way I'm not proud of. Worst of all, he wasn't even doing anything. All he had been doing was reminiscing about how I used to make a Sims family of us when I was in uni, and how creepy it was. He said it endearingly. I don't really know why I got so mad, but I basically said something along the lines of how he's the creepy one because he has a secret stash of stuff hidden from me. I felt really bad because he got all pale and went quiet, and then he sort of said he needed space, and went to blow off some steam at the shooting range, which he does a lot when he needs to think, so I didn't question it. He came back home around dinner and said he was ready to talk. I asked him about all of the things I found, especially the photos. I reminded him again that I never agreed to making nudes of any sort, and he apologized and agreed to burn them. Apparently our history goes back further than even I knew, as he recounted that we actually met before high school. I had no idea, but his mom, who's a divorce attorney, was the very same one my mom used when she separated from her first husband, not my dad. I called my mom after to confirm, and she told me it was true, but her and my MIL never told me because my mom's divorce was messy and she hates talking about it. Anyways, back to the first meeting thing. My MIL, at the time, often had Lee hang out around her office after school, And it was during one of these days that my mom had to take me with her to speak with Emile in person. Lee was actually the boy that I played with in the waiting room? I can't believe he remembered that, because I totally forgot it. So according to him that first meeting was the day he knew I was special. Lee told me that while he had tried to pass it off as a crush, as he got older it never really went away, which led him to look into his mom's case files, and my state attorneys have to keep them for 7 years. And he found my mom on Facebook, then my dad in her friends list, and managed to find my first and last name in order to find my Instagram. He had convinced his parents to let him transfer from his private K-12 school to my public high school, using the excuse that they had a better athletics program, which isn't actually far-fetched since my high school was one of the best in the state for that. Once he found out where I was going, thanks to my dumb self putting it in my bio. I thought that us meeting was a sheer coincidence, and that we fell in love naturally, a classic sort of high school sweethearts. But no. Lee had orchestrated it all. I took my daughter with me to stay with my mom and stepdad, while Lee agreed to stay home and let me think. I spoke to my mom, as well as Emile and Efile. Lee's parents are not happy with him in all honesty, and Emile is especially mad because of client confidentiality. My mom gave me some good advice, that being that I should reflect on that Lee had displayed any other red flag behaviors. I can honestly say that no, he hadn't, but since I know I'm biased, I asked my friends and those close to me if they noticed anything. So far, everything else about Lee seems to check out. I've never felt endangered by him, even when I told him I needed some distance for a few days. I want to make this marriage work, but is this something that therapy can fix? Another comment from OP: Hi, this is really late for a reply. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't ready to acknowledge it for a long time. Lee told me that he didn't mean anything by it, and wanted to just have a keepsake collection of some memorable moments we shared. But he did acknowledge that he knew it was wrong and apologized, and he promised me he'd get rid of the pictures by burning them. Update 3. Lee and I have since been going to couples counseling, and he's going to individual therapy. After the whole drama that happened a few months ago, he sort of had a come-to-Christ moment, where he realized that the way he had been obsessing over the idea of me wasn't the same as a healthy love. We spent a few weeks apart so he could work on himself, and he turned over his device's passwords and accounts to me so that I could go through and calm my worries, because I was really anxious about the explicit photos since then, though we're back in our house and with our baby girl, and our marriage is back on track and better for it. Update 4. I don't even know how to process what's happened, but here goes nothing. So, after our initial round of therapy, and what I thought was a breakthrough, Lee started showing some real improvement. I mean, I was genuinely feeling optimistic. He was more present, more engaged with our daughter, and even the weird, creepy vibes I got from him in the past seemed to fade. It was like we were finally in sync again, and for a brief moment, I thought we'd really made it through the storm. But of course, that couldn't last, could it? It started with small things, tiny, almost imperceptible shifts in his behavior that I might have ignored had I not been hyper-aware of everything post-Memento box discovery. He was staying up late, which wasn't out of the ordinary, but I'd catch him zoning out with this intense, glazed-over look in his eyes. Like he was somewhere else. I asked him about it a couple of times, but he just brushed it off, saying he was tired or stressed about work. But something in my gut told me that wasn't it. Then, last week, I found another box. Yep. Another damn box. This one wasn't hidden in the closet, though. It was tucked under the bed, and it was the most bizarre collection of stuff I've ever seen. It wasn't anything personal like before. No photos, no lingerie, nothing directly connected to me. Instead, it was full of old, yellowing papers like the kind you find in your grandma's attic. Some of them were school assignments from when we were kids. How the hell he got those, I have no idea. And others were random articles about psychological studies on relationships and obsession. But the thing that freaked me out the most was this small, hand-drawn map at the bottom of the box. It was a rough sketch of our neighborhood, nothing too detailed, just enough to show our house, a few nearby streets, and dot a couple of marked locations. One of them was circled in red ink, with a date scribbled next to it 3 weeks from now. I don't know why, but my blood ran cold when I saw that. I had no idea what it meant, and I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't ignore that pit in my stomach. So, I did something that I'd never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on here, something darker that Lee wasn't telling me. And well, what the PI found out has me questioning everything. Turns out, Lee's been sneaking out at night. Not in some dramatic, cheating kind of way, thank God for small favors, but he's been driving to this old, abandoned house on the outskirts of town. It's practically falling apart, and according to the PI, he spends hours there, just sitting in his car or walking around the property. There's no clear reason why he's doing it, no one else involved, no apparent connection to the house itself. But it's beyond weird, and I can't figure out what it means. When I confronted him about it, he didn't deny it. Instead, he got this strange, faraway look in his eyes and told me he's been having these dreams. Dreams that keep leading him back to that house, like there's something there he's supposed to find. He said it like it was the most normal thing in the world, like he fully expected me to understand. I didn't know what to say. I mean, what do you say to that? He promised he'd stop going, but I don't know if I believe him. And now, that date on the map is creeping closer, and I'm left wondering if I should be preparing for something or running as far away as I can. I want to believe that this is just a weird phase or some kind of residual stress from everything that's happened, but I can't shake the feeling that there's something much bigger brewing beneath the surface. So, that's where we are now. I'm staying with my mom again for a bit, just to clear my head and figure out my next move. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on my marriage, but I'm also not willing to sit around and wait for whatever this is to escalate into something worse. Update 5. So, I honestly didn't expect to be back so soon, but here we are. Things have escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything, but I'll do my best to explain what's happened. Remember that date on the map? Well, it came and went, and let me tell you, it wasn't nothing. I was at my mom's place, trying to keep a low profile and stay out of Lee's way. We hadn't really been talking much since the whole abandoned house revelation. He'd been texting me, trying to reassure me that he was fine and that he wasn't going back to that place, but I could tell something was off. It felt like he was just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. Then, on the day of that circled date, I got a call from Lee's best friend, Mark. Mark's been like a brother to Lee since they were kids, and he's always been the laid-back, easygoing type. But when he called me, he sounded panicked, like, full on. I've never heard him like this panicked. Apparently, Lee had called him in the middle of the night, rambling about how he finally understood, and that he needed Mark to come with him to the abandoned house. Mark, being the good friend he is, agreed, thinking it was just another one of Lee's weird stress-induced episodes. But when they got there, things took a turn for the worse. Lee had brought along that damn box, the one with the papers, the map, everything. Mark said Lee was acting like he was possessed or something, going on about how this place was the key, and how he needed to finish what he started. Mark tried to talk him down, but Lee was adamant. He started tearing through the house, searching for something. Mark couldn't figure out what. And then, they found it. At this point, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, gripping my phone like my life depends on it, and Mark is struggling to find the words to explain what they uncovered. But eventually, he gets it out. There was a hidden room in the basement. I know, it sounds insane like some horror movie cliché, but it's true. The room was small, barely more than a crawl space, and inside, there were these old, dusty boxes. Mark said it looked like no one had been down there in decades. The boxes were full of old documents, personal item stuff that belonged to a family that used to live there. Nothing too out of the ordinary, except for one thing, a single piece of paper, yellowed with age, that had Lee's full name written on it. His name, and mine. Mark sent me a picture of it, and I nearly dropped my phone. It wasn't just some random scribble. It was a birth certificate, our daughter's birth certificate. But it was dated years before she was even born. I have no idea what this means, and honestly, I'm too freaked out to even think straight. How could something like this exist? How did it end up in that house? And why was Lee so obsessed with finding it? I tried calling Lee after Mark told me all of this, but he didn't pick up. I was terrified that he'd gone off the deep end, and my mind started spiraling into worst-case scenarios. I packed up my daughter and rushed home, half expecting to find him there, waiting for me with more bizarre revelations. But when I got there, the house was empty. Lee was gone. No note, no text, nothing. I called Mark again, and he said he hadn't heard from Lee since they left the house. We both agreed that something seriously weird was going on, and Mark said he'd do whatever he could to help me find him. But as the hours ticked by, I started to feel like maybe Lee didn't want to be found. It's been a few days now, and there's still no sign of him. I've contacted the police, but they're treating it as a missing person case for now. They've searched the abandoned house, but according to them, There's nothing there that links Lee to anything criminal or even anything that explains why he was so fixated on the place. The birth certificate? They're chalking it up to some kind of forgery or a mix-up with the documents. But that doesn't explain why it was in that house or why Lee was so drawn to it. And here's the kicker. Last night, I got a package in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled on the front in Lee's handwriting. Inside was a single item, a small, silver key, and a note that simply said, "I'm sorry. I have no idea what the key is for, and I'm honestly too scared to find out. I've been staring at it for hours, trying to decide what to do next. Should I keep digging, or should I just let it go? Should I wait for Lee to come back, or should I start moving on? I don't have any answers right now, and I'm not sure I ever will. But one thing's for sure, my life has been turned upside down, and I'm not sure if things will ever go back to normal." Update 6. I never thought I'd be writing this, and honestly, I've been putting it off because once I hit post, it becomes real. But I owe it to those of you who've been following this insane journey to share how it all ended. And maybe, somehow, writing it all down will help me process what's happened. After I received that package with the key and the cryptic note from Lee, I was paralyzed with indecision. I kept the key on my nightstand, staring at it every night, trying to will myself into figuring out what it meant, where it led, and why Lee had sent it to me. A part of me hoped it was his way of reaching out a breadcrumb that would lead me to him, and maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to normal. But deep down, I think I already knew that wasn't going to happen. A few days after the package arrived, I got a call from the police. They had found Lee. Or rather, they had found his car. It was parked near a cliffside road a couple of hours outside of town, near a stretch of wilderness that people rarely go to anymore. The place used to be a popular hiking spot, but after several accidents over the years, it had been more or less abandoned. The moment the officer on the phone said the location, I knew this was where everything was going to come crashing down. When I arrived, they'd already set up a perimeter. The car was empty, the door slightly ajar, and there were no signs of a struggle, no indication that anyone else had been involved. But they found Lee's wallet, his phone, and that map. The one with the circled date. It was lying on the passenger seat, folded neatly, as if he wanted someone to find it. And then they found his body. He had jumped. They found him at the base of the cliff, nestled among the rocks where the waves crashed violently against the shore. I can't even begin to describe the numbness that washed over me when they told me. It was like the world just stopped turning for a moment, and all I could think was, this can't be real. But it was. I still don't understand why he did it. Why he left me with our daughter, with that damned key, with so many unanswered questions. They found no note, no explanation. Just that one last, haunting, "I'm sorry." After the funeral, if you can even call it that, given how few people came, I went back to our house. It felt like a tomb, filled with memories that now felt tainted, like echoes of a life that wasn't really mine anymore. I kept thinking about that key, trying to decide if I even wanted to know what it unlocked. Part of me was terrified of what I'd find, of what final secret Lee had left for me. But in the end, I couldn't live with not knowing. I started searching through the house, trying the key on every lock I could find, drawers, cabinets, even our old safe. Nothing. I was on the verge of giving up when I remembered the attic. It's not somewhere we ever went, mostly just old junk from before we moved in. But something pulled me up there, and when I did, I found a small, dusty lockbox tucked behind a pile of old Christmas decorations. The key fit perfectly. Inside the box, there were more papers, old letters, faded photographs, things that looked like they belonged to a different era. And then I found it, a letter from Lee, written in his unmistakable handwriting, but with a trembling uncertainty that broke my heart all over again. He wrote about how he had felt lost for years, how that first encounter with me in his mom's office had been like an anchor in a life that was spiraling out of control. How he had clung to that memory, that feeling of connection, like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. But as time went on, that connection became more of an obsession, and he couldn't tell the difference between love and the need to possess something that felt safe. He confessed that the house he kept going back to wasn't just some random place, it was the home where his biological father had lived. A man he barely remembered but who had left behind a legacy of darkness. Lee had always known something wasn't right in his family, that there were secrets no one wanted to talk about. And as he got older, those secrets started to unravel, pulling him deeper into a void he couldn't escape. He said he went to that house to confront the ghosts of his past, to try and make sense of the twisted memories that had haunted him. But instead of finding closure, He found himself trapped by the realization that he had become just like the man he feared. That his love for me had become tainted by the same obsession that had ruined his father. He ended the letter by saying that he couldn't bear to hurt me any more than he already had. That he knew there was no coming back from what he'd done. And that he hoped, somehow, I could find peace without him. I sat there in the attic, holding that letter, and I cried for what felt like hours. For the man I thought I knew, for the life we'd built, for the daughter who would never know her father. I cried for all the things I would never understand, and for the love that had turned into something twisted and tragic. In the end, there are no neat conclusions, no easy answers. Just a gaping hole where my life used to be, and a little girl who needs me to be strong, even when I feel like I'm falling apart. I don't know what the future holds, whether I'll ever be able to move on from this or if I'll always carry this weight with me. But I do know one thing, I have to keep going. For her.